Mini has used several different types of alternators, locations, amperage, etc. over the years. Depending on the year, make, and model of your Mini, you may need to put your radiator into the service position. Please follow the link provided at the end of this video for detailed instructions on all the different makes, models, and methods needed to remove and replace your alternator. Before you begin replacing the alternator on any of the cars, please make sure that you disconnect the battery. Use a belt tensioner tool to release tension on the serpentine belt and lock the tensioner in place by inserting the factory pin or a small Allen wrench, purple arrow, into the second hole in the tensioner arm, green arrow. With the belt tensioner locked, remove the serpentine belt from the alternator pulley. On the back of the alternator, press the tab on the connector and pull the plug out of the back of the alternator, green arrow. Now remove the 10mm nut holding the 12-volt lead wire to the back of the alternator, green arrow. Make sure you have disconnected the battery before you do this. Shown here are both connections removed from the rear of the alternator. Now remove the 3 mounting bolts holding the alternator to the engine block, green arrows, and carefully remove the alternator from the engine. Shown here is the engine block with the alternator removed. This is a good time to clean any grease or grime off the front of the engine block. On the R50 cars, begin by removing the serpentine belt and then remove the 3 long 10mm bolts that hold the alternator to the engine block, green arrows. Now turn the alternator over so you can access the 13mm nut that holds the battery cable in place, green arrow, and also the electrical harness that plugs into the back of the alternator, purple arrow. Again, you must disconnect the battery before you're working on your alternator. Once these connections are removed, you can remove the old alternator from the engine bay. Now the R55, R56, and R57 Cooper and Cooper S's. Shown here is the alternator in an R56 Mini Cooper. To remove the alternator, you'll first need to remove the serpentine belt, not shown, and then loosen and remove the upper torque bolts, green arrows, holding the belt tensioner to the engine. Remove the belt tensioner, then unplug the electrical connector going to the alternator, purple arrow. Next, loosen and remove the 13mm nut holding the positive cable to the alternator, red arrow, and as before, the battery must be disconnected before doing this. Finally, loosen and remove the lower torque bolt securing the alternator to the engine block, yellow arrow. Now carefully remove the alternator from the engine compartment. Installation is the reverse of removal. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.